I'm Tony Ruiz of Gold Derby here with Dan Weil, the production designer for Franklin, the Apple TV limited series about Benjamin Franklin. And Dan, I think I just look at this on paper. It's Benjamin Franklin, it's 18th century, it's Paris, and you're designing the look of some of the big, great historical events in the world. Where does your process begin when you get an assignment like this?
To read it, to break it down. That's the first thing, to see what is needed. That's really first thing, and to read between the lines, more or less, means to understand it's not only about breaking down how many place or location or sets you need, but also how they move from one to the other, how we interpret. So that's the real first work. I mean, the first approach is to read. After this is that's really to read what you need. What is the means? What you need for the show? How many rooms? Who is going where? With who? And so on. That's the first one. That after having more, like I would say, some sort of scholar approach with Franklin, with Mr. Madame Briand, with Mr. Emile. I don't even remember all the name of these people. So 16, I know this guy more or less. The thing after this is a matter. There's a few options, a few issues with like culturally. Before I've done this, because I've done another 18th century type of movie, or before, the relationship with usually French people, the way we've been taught about history, is something very present, especially on my job, because since the time I'm doing, sometimes you do 16th, 17th, 18th century, so you have I won't say an easier, but usually more accurate sense of history, what is what, because it's part of our life, our daily life. So I know exactly, let's put it that way, like I know exactly where the 16th century neighborhood in Paris are. That's the first point. The second thing is we technically, I would imagine that same thing about London, same thing about New York, but when you are living in a city, and if somebody tell you in Los Angeles or I don't know where you are from, Tony?
I'm in Northern California. I'm in like Sacramento.
But I mean, if you talk Seattle, if you know what looks more Canadian and more logs cabin, you know exactly where the places are, same locations are. Same thing for me. I mean, it's quite normal to know. Usually, when you have done already an 18th century show in Paris, you know more or less which castle, which palaces are available for location or for shooting, and it's not like it's not so far from us technically. It doesn't mean that you have the authorization, doesn't mean that you have to convince the directors, the DOPs, that's a good place, whatever. But it's quite, I won't say natural, because it's some sort of work, but it's not as complicated as a sci-fi movie. It's a lot more. I will say, when you do an historical piece, you have a limited vocabulary, artistically speaking, architecturally speaking, so it's limited. I mean, usually when you do something like 16th, 18th century, you don't do 18th century, you do a little before, because except the king and but Briand was the Briand, and the other guy was the people who were able, who have the money to buy right now the brand new thing. It's like you have like today's in Paris or in New York or wherever, in Los Angeles, wherever, in London, you will have like a 2024 type of last high-hand designer doing stuff. That was the case of these people. But usually you mix up with something with vaguely around the period.
So am I correct? In speaking to some of the other creatives, I spoke with Olivier Berriot, the costume designer, and Tim Van Patten, the director. So much of this was shot on location, and yet there were only a certain number of rooms that had to be built like on a studio. Am I correct on that?
You are correct. Yeah, that's correct. So but it's a lot of cheat. So what I mean is like you don't know which one is on studio. Even sometimes I don't remember which one is on stage and which one on location. And sometimes for one location we could have for one place we will have a couple of location. If you talk about for example Versailles, we shot so the deal with Tim and why did Tim did come into France is to shoot on location. He wanted real stuff. He didn't want really to go on stage and things like this. They were hesitating between doing all on stage or doing as much as possible on location. And the will of Tim was to be on location as much as possible. And we mixed up a lot of things. For example, like if you talk about Versailles, Versailles is mainly shot on location in Versailles, but not all of it. Vergen office is on stage, and some corridor are done on another location, not in Versailles, because we didn't have enough days to shoot there. You know, Versailles you shoot only on Monday. It's from I don't know 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I mean, it's very very precise. It's complicated.
So
it's
in
not a
building in building like I believe Franklin's the interior of where Franklin was staying for most of that was also on a set, right?
He was on stage, and the exterior was was built on location with no
And
visual
so
effect.
and so because that set is such an important, I think, so much happens there, not
Mhm.
just the political negotiations, but the stuff with Franklin and his grandson. That space has to have almost a life of its own. It's almost like another character. How do you go about creating that?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know how to explain exactly. It's the idea was to be. Uh, my idea was first we pick the location. Then we have the idea that they built a pavilion because they both. I mean, the idea of these people, they are some sort of nouveau riche. They are actually big traders who bought them a title. Okay, so that's for real. I mean, I'm talking historically speaking. These people wanted to be considered as not as aristocracy, but they were not part of it. They were rich entrepreneurs, and in some way we wanted. So they bought one castle, was their main place, and they have had the idea was they have had a pavilion. So this pavilion have to be a little bit like nouveau riche type, like if you have bought a house with done and you bought like a summer house or a beach house in your garden and you want it to be really high end and really fashionable, like it's like a Kardashian type of the 18th century. So these people was some sort of I am nothing against Kardashian. It's not about it's about the fact that they want to show up, and they wanted to be high end at the same time. So I will say for me in my mind, they were like Marie Antoinette fan. She was, I mean, the lady was a Marie Antoinette fan. So that's what more or less I had in mind. So I look at what Marie Antoinette had done at the Trianon. It was a story more or less creating a copy of the Trianon, not a copy, I mean, set by set or something look like, but something like the same feeling. I don't remember the name of the character actually, but they were like they were more or less the Madame. They were doing the same things that Marie Antoinette have done for the Trianon. So really, so you have the last designers, the last furniture, the most extreme. So it's like if you said in when you said like when you said, think of something as a soprano, when the soprano interior they are really Italian style, but a little bit over the top, and that's what my for the character of these people, I wanted to be extreme, nearly extreme 18th century style, little over the
And,
top.
Yeah, but that was actually going to be my next question, because you want so many times I talk to production designers, and they always, to a person, say that the best production design is the one where is the type where it doesn't feel flashy. And I always feel like the production line in this show was just flashy enough and yet totally of the moment. Do you find
Yeah,
that you don't want it to stand out too much, or how do you thread that needle?
no, I don't have the same approach. It's not about being flashy. It's to be real, to be real, to feel real. And you don't want to draw attention on something which is not important. But you could be. So it's not about be flashy. But if you do if you create a bar from the 70s, you have to be disco. Disco is flashy. But it's not flashy in the fact that you don't notice it, but you don't notice it because that's normal. If you do, let's say for some golf, very rich people, an interior design apartment, you will be flashy because that's what they want. And it doesn't look so flashy. It looks flashy to you, to me, to some people, but it's not flashy because everybody is dressed that way. So it's not because I want the set to be noticeable. It's because I think these people are a little over the top. They want something gold. But if you it's difficult to how can I explain it? Actually, when you think of the 18th century, everybody seeing a lot of gold and they elaborating, but it's wrong actually. That's the opposite way. The more elaborated, the more sort of tacky is Louis XIV. So that's Versailles. Okay. Then slowly, with Louis XV, who is actually the grandson of Louis XIV, or even the grandson of Louis XIV, so it's three generations between them. It begins to be a little more straight. Then Louis XV is even more straight. So, for example, Louis XV is all like this, but it's not gold anymore. It's a shape, but it's not gold anymore. It's more wood and white painted. And Louis the 16 is even straight, but it's still wood and painted. So actually, the 18th century will go from more extreme with Louis XIV to Napoleon, with more straight and rigid. So it's so more or less not being as straight as they should be would have been for me was tacky. But I don't know if people will understand, but it's actually a period where you begin to come back to more, not reality, but more square stuff, whatever,
Uh,
more or less.
I, I'm curious if there was a particular set or a particular location that you looked at and said, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Was there one that you were particularly proud of where you thought like, yeah, I nailed this. I got this.
Uh, it's difficult for me to tell things by my job. No, I don't know. When you have to do something in Versailles, you know you have to be big, to have a lot of staff, to be elaborated because you have to match with something. So yes, I will imagine that the Vergen office, the green one, you don't know that it's not in Versailles, and I'm proud of this. Not because it's a beautiful site, but because you don't know where you are. You quit Le Palais des Glaces and the King rooms and was real location or the main stairways or the courtyard of Versailles, and the next scene happen in his office, and you should feel like you are in the same location. You can't be smaller, you can't be narrower, you can't be as rich, you can't be as elaborated. You have to be as much. So that's some sort of it's difficult to explain because usually your relationship. I mean, I need to have a relationship with sets with like you. I have to tell me a story, and I have to tell the same story to the director. I need the director to agree on this approach. But when a set is built, you go to the next one. So it's not like there are no one set who is better than the other. You just more or less my proudness about this show is the fact that even myself, I don't even know which one is the set, which one is a location, and we've mixed up so many locations. We've been so many castle or location in Paris or around Paris that I don't even remember which one is what. What I know is that you don't see any difference between the exterior with inner relocation of the pavilion to the interior. You don't know that you are not in the same floor. There is actually two floors, but you never notice that they are not built in two floors, as you can imagine. So it's more, but it's more technical than anything else. I mean, it's that the people who have to be happy and to think it's great. I mean, it's more the reaction of the people watching the show that my reaction. So, you know, it's the stories. More or less, you are happy when the stories that you have imagined in your mind about the show, about this set or that set, that the director like it. That's what is more. That's the first. The first thing was important. Then after this is more technical issue, and I'm as proud of the quality of the work done by the painters, by the carpenter. You know, sometimes I could be very happy with a plinth or a door handle, or you know, it's.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I mean, I watched the show and did not tell what was created versus what was already established. So
Yeah,
if that's the mark, I think you hit it.
Yeah, that's what I'm always, most of the time, whatever show I've done before, I'm happy when people don't know which one is a set, which one is a location, if all is done on set. And that's my real pleasure, actually. More than to say this set is better than that set. The problem is the set should match with the people, with the characters. And that's what is important. That I will say I will have the same approach that Oliver will have told you about every costume tell a story. For me, I don't want the sets to be noticeable. I want them to fit with who he is, who they belong to. Because what was weird is actually he's living in a place who is not done for him. And it's done by not Madame Brion, Madame, I don't remember her name, I just forget her name. Um, uh, and she have done it as for a good friend, not for a guy coming from America. So the room always been, you know, I don't know if you remember the wallpaper, but the wallpaper is a fabric. Actually, it's not wallpaper; it's a fabric with little flowers and roses and things like this. So that was a little bit ridiculous with this guy. But he was also ridiculous because he used it as a printing room, and I like the idea of being over the top and decorated with gold and roses and whatever, and be just like a workshop.
Well, Dan, congratulations. Such beautiful work. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions for the upcoming award season, and stay tuned for interviews with more contenders in the coming weeks. Dan, congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.